Hey everyone, and welcome back to Jamango Academy. In this video, we're kicking off our Obby course by placing platforms into the world. But more importantly, we're learning how props work and why they're such a powerful tool for building interactive games. So before we jump in, let's take a moment to understand the core creator concepts in Jmango. Blocks are simple pieces of the world that are locked to the grid. You'll mostly see blocks as being cubes, but they can be sculpted by adding and removing their corners. Blocks always stay in place. They don't move and they don't respond to physics or player actions. Think of them as a static building material, like the backbone of your game. Blocks are a fantastic, simple way to add easy parkour challenges, but they aren't the most interesting thing in the world. This is because blocks are just the foundation, and where it gets fun is when we can interact with objects in our game. And that's where entities come in. These are dynamic objects that can move off-grid, and entities interact with physics, are easily controlled through code, and can have traits attached to them by using the wrench tool. We have some different kinds of entities like props, which we'll look at in a second, characters, so avatars and NPCs around the world which you can speak to, box areas, which are like the invisible zones in the world that can act as triggers, say when a player enters a certain area, and you, the player. Every type of entity has a position and rotation in the world, and they can be placed anywhere throughout your Jmango game. Now props in particular are great, and they're what we're going to be using most in this tutorial series. Props are entities that are made from a collection of blocks grouped together, but the prop itself operates as one object. This means that we can move the prop anywhere in the world, write our own code to affect the prop, and attach traits to the prop as a whole. And props can be scaled up and scaled down to whatever size you need, which is how games in Jmango get these really cool models. First, you build up what you want your prop to look like using blocks, and then you transform those blocks into a prop. Just like with any other type of entity, props are reusable, editable, and programmable, and they're the main way that we build interactive mechanics in Jmango. An example of blocks and props in action is this Your Obby sign here on the Star Island. We can see that this sign itself is made up from individual blocks, but they're combined together and shrunk down to act as a single prop. Also notice how this sign isn't aligned to the regular grid that blocks are. All of these things are what makes props so great. They are very versatile and can fit any of your needs. But we shouldn't forget how important normal blocks are either, and I want to quickly highlight something called blueprints. If you're building any kind of world in Jmango, you'll probably be working with a lot of blocks. Let's say I've built this grass platform entirely out of blocks, and I want to reuse it across my world as sections for the Obby course, but I don't want to turn all of these blocks into a prop to reuse them. And that's where blueprints come in. Blueprints let you save collections of blocks and copy and paste them without converting them into props. They're great for large-scale building when you want to reuse immovable structures like houses or bridges or statues, anything that your mind comes up with. These blocks will also remain locked to the grid, so if you're planning out a big environment, blueprints are a great tool to keep in mind. For this Obby game that we're making, we'll be using these pre-made assets from the Obby asset pack, and I'm going to drag this metal platform prop into my inventory. I can use this to place it down in my world in front of this starting island, and you might be able to see the individual blocks that this platform is made of. But when I move this entity around, everything operates as a single object. So I'll place a few more instances of this platform to get up to the next section of my Obby, and you can already start to see our game taking shape. Let's test this by pressing tab to start our game and jumping between them, and we might need to add some more platforms or change their positions if the jumps are too difficult. Another important thing about props, or really any entities, is that there are assets and there are instances. Prop assets are what's stored in your inventory, and they are the master version of the prop. This goes back to the actual creation of props. When a prop is made, it becomes the prop asset in our inventory, which then we can place down in the world. When the prop is actually in our world, like these platforms, they are called prop instances. Prop instances are copies of the asset version, and they can be interacted with by the player. You can find a list of all of your current prop instances by pressing J to open up the scripting menu and clicking on the instances icon. Each entry here represents a separate prop instance, each with its own name and settings. One final note for you is that sometimes you might run into an issue where you want a prop to stay in the air, but when you run your game it falls down into the ocean. This is because this particular prop is using a dynamic motion type. This means that the prop can be affected by physics, and most notably gravity. If I instead change this motion type to kinematic and run the game, you'll see that it stays in place and it isn't affected by any other motion like gravity, or even players jumping on top of it. So you can use the wrench tool to change the motion type for individual prop instances, but if you want to change the motion type for assets, you can do that by going to the inventory and finding your prop asset, clicking edit, and then change it here. By doing this for the asset version of the prop, any prop instance we now place into the world will retain this motion type. So that's another helpful thing when building out your Obby course. So I really recommend just playing around with these systems in your world for a bit and get used to how they function. This is a pretty simple start in our game making journey, but in future videos, we'll be making this way more fun by exploring how we can write code and create our own traits to make things like spinning platforms. This is really where props start to come alive, so I'll see you then. Drop any questions in the comments below, check out the Jmango Discord community, and get hyped for future videos.